my composer Rolf Kent, who's brilliant and has done all my films, or most of my films. But this is a very different film, and this is the first score that I've ever worked on where instead of starting with melody, what we started with was sounds. And throughout the shoot, he would send me emails, and each sound would have a name for a different level of heat. So one sound would be called simmering, and one sound would be called boiling. And we really created the soundscape of the film with those sounds, and the melody came last.
Do we have questions out in the audience?
Sir.
Okay, yes, right here.
Mr. Reitman, phenomenal job. Really tripping up on that movie.
Mr. Reitman's actually seated over there. I'm Jason.
I can't help but notice in the last 5 films you progressively got a little more serious, a little more darker. You could please explain your motivation behind that, but before you do, Ms. Winslet, because I love Jason so much on Mr. Reitman, could you please explain, because I love your body of work, what new did you learn from working with Jason that really allowed you to go this extra?
So, can you hear up in the top there? I'll repeat the question. There's one question to Kate, and the question is about what she learned working with Jason in this film in particular.
I think that, I sort of feel like I should speak really on behalf of us because we really were all in it together, and I think that we all learnt a lot from the experience of making the film with Jason. And certainly, I think we all had thought about our characters so much before we got there on day one, and we had so much that we as individuals wanted to bring to the piece. But Jason is a really structured filmmaker in the sense that he knows absolutely how he wants to tell his story. He's lived with it and breathed with it for such a long time that it's really in his bones. And so it was wonderful actually to walk into a situation where all the preparation we could just tuck away and yes, rely on it, but to trust that lesson was giving to all of us as a framework, as this very watertight framework, was really a luxury because it meant that the freedom we all had to play within that structure was really phenomenal and very, very liberating.
That's a very kind way of saying I allowed the actors to do nothing.
And then the second question was for you, Jason. It was about your films and how they've sort of taken a darker tone as you progress.
I wish I could explain that. I guess I'm becoming more of a dramatic guy. I don't know. Maybe the libraries have been an outlet to do more comedy, and these are becoming more dramatic. I don't know.
There's no particular motivation?
I'm sorry, dude. I wish I could tell you that I was in some sort of trajectory, but no. Helen gave me this book, and she said, you know, this is unlike anything you've ever said you wanted to do, but I have a feeling you're going to love it, and she was absolutely right. And, you know, I should mention right now, the author of the novel, Joyce Maynard, is here. Joyce, where are you? Can you stand up, please, for a second? Oh, there she is. This is the closest adaptation I've ever done, or probably ever will. I really, I don't even deserve a writing credit. I basically transcribed the book, and it's her words that are the reason why we're all here.
Any other questions out there? Yes, the lady over here.
I just wanted to ask if you could go down the line and tell me what you thought was your favorite or most beautiful part of your story, Jason. Which is your favorite thing that you want to work on or explore in terms of story, relationships, and characters?
We've got a little bit of time, so maybe you might pick a couple a person that you want to ask that to.
I'm really curious about yours, Galen. Oh, man. What is the question? What my favorite part of making this film? You know, my favorite part of making this film was that Josh made a pie every single day of the shoot. And he's this picture of masculinity, except he would show up at this cottage he was living in, and he'd be wearing an apron, and he'd show up, and he'd be all excited about the new crust he got done. And he would give us pies every single day. to the point where he would come walking with a pie and people would scatter. Oh no, he's got another pie!
Hey, yours.
Eating Josh's pie.
Take it home now.
Okay, my favorite part of the whole movie was how good Jason's arm got. I bring a football every single day to set. And beginning of the movie, you were still good. You were still good. It was just, by the end of the movie, you had like, I don't know, 35-yard tight spiral.
Gatlin taught me to throw a football over the course of the shoot.
The gentleman over there at the far side.
This is a question for Jason. Many of your previous films, including Up in the Air and Thank You for Smoking, were very biting and dark and quite sad. And I was curious why you were attracted and why you felt the need to gravitate here towards something that was softer and more sentimental.
Well, I'm not all biting and dark and sad. This is getting very personal tonight. Perhaps it was a reaction to having just made a few films in a row that had that effect on an audience. I don't know. I really can't tell you, and maybe it'll be 5 or 10 years from now that I'll look back and go, oh, that's probably why I made that movie at that moment. All I know is I read this book, I fell in love with it, and I needed to tell this story. And I was only going to tell it if I could make it with Josh and Kate. And I remember Kate said yes, but she said she couldn't make it for a year, so we waited. And that's why there's young adults. In that interim, we made that movie.
There's a lady up in the front of the balcony there. Yes.
It's not a lady.
Sorry. A lady with a very deep voice.
I have a question for Kay. And it's, since the pregnancy, and we see in the screen the pregnancy going so bad, if you ever thought about it, it's such a hard story in real life.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? We couldn't hear it.
The pregnancy part in the movie being so hard during her pregnancy, if she thought about it at all.
How hard was it doing the pregnancy scene?
Then,
Well, I have in the past played characters who have been. Oh, can I borrow someone else's mic? Yeah. I have played pregnant people before. So it isn't something I was completely unfamiliar with, but obviously, emotionally it was very hard, and those scenes were very difficult. And actually, I chose not to see the film tonight because it's just weird to do that right now. But yeah, it was it was very difficult shooting those scenes. But that's why we do this ridiculous job.
we have time for maybe one more question, and I'm going to go to the lady over there. That is a lady, yes? The question is about developing Kate's character and how quickly she falls in love with Josh's character, and how hard that must have been in such a short period of time to do, and how Jason did that.
It's hard to imagine someone falling for Josh Brolin. And I understand why.
Thank you so much for the question. Good night.
Really, really hard. It's not difficult to fall for this wonderful, soft, cuddly, fuzzy bear man. Because he's really not scary at all. He's really funny and stuff. I have to say, the character of Adele is so fleshed out, as all the characters are in Joyce's beautiful novel, and of course subsequently in the screenplay, that I felt I really had to do it justice, to be honest. And that was the biggest challenge of all, was just, oh my God, I hope I can actually fill these boots. But for me, I think the most important thing was to absolutely play the truth of her and all of the truth of her past, you know, which she lives with daily. But at the same time, one of the things that I was able to really rely on, I think, in terms of playing this part, was that she's a really wonderful mother, and she really loves her child. And the one thing that never wavered at all was her parenting of her son. And that is quite unique, I think, when you stumble across a female character who is so, on the surface, so fragile and fragmented in the way that she is. You know, she isn't munching on Prozac, and she isn't wandering around lost with terrible hair in her bathrobe until 3 and then drinking gin and neglectful. You know, she's absolutely able to put it together and absolutely able to see that the most important thing above all else is her love for her son. And so getting the balance really between those two emotional extremes, because they are extremes, and she did have to hide so much of everything that she has been through. That was the kind of tightrope walk, really, for me. But I was very blessed because I had this wonderful young man playing my son, who really is a wonderful young man.
Jason, thank you so much for bringing Labor Day to us. Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Reitman.